All right, it's time to pull out that major template and follow along with me to look at some different options you might have for fall registration. Obviously, you can do this on your computer in something like Microsoft Paint, but also nothing wrong with printing this out and following along with a pen. So basically the goal of this video will be to help you make a primary plan, which would be, if you got your way, the top 4 or 5 classes that you want to take this fall, but we're also going to identify backup options. As you'll hear any Hub Advisor say roughly 1,000 times, you always want to have some backup options when you're going into registration. So let's start by looking at the recommendations for fall, and then we'll branch out from there and talk about some different changes you can make. I do want to point out that almost no student at RPI truly follows this template to a T all the way through 4 years, so don't panic if some decisions you want to make switch the template around. So for fall semester, the department recommends taking Chemistry 1, Intro to Engineering Analysis, more commonly known here as IEA, Calculus, Intro to Materials Science, and a HAAS course. HAAS stands for Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences, and these are your general education requirements at Rensselaer. There's another video that goes into those more deeply in the guide. So, looking at these options, obviously chemistry is going to be very important for your major. If you already have credit for this in some way, there is the option to move on to this course, Materials Science. Now, I can definitely understand that being an attractive option since you obviously are a materials major and would probably find this interesting. However, I would caution this a little bit. I do have students who have done this in the fall semester and done well. However, it definitely is one of the tougher courses in your first year. So I would probably not jump into material science unless I had at least, I would say like maybe 20 transfer credits with a big math and science focus on those transfer credits. If you have questions, let me know. Moving on to IEA. This course has no prerequisites and it can absolutely be taken in the fall semester. However, this is one where I would ask you to consider your background in physics. While physics is not a prerequisite for IEA, we tend to find students do better in IEA if they have a good physics background first. So if you've recently taken AP Physics or some sort of upper level physics course in your high school, then you're probably fine to jump straight into IEA. However, if you've only taken 1 year of high school physics and you aren't feeling super confident in that background, then my recommendation would be to switch IEA to the spring and take Physics 1 in the fall. Then, looking down here at your math requirement, the template gives you a good flowchart of what to do based on what credits you have. So, if you've already got credit for Calc 1, you'd move to Calc 2. Obviously, if you have no credit, take Calc 1 your first semester. If you have credit for Calculus 1 and Calculus 2, then you would want to move on to differential equations. Now, if you really wanted to take a math class and differential equations was where you were at and it couldn't fit into your schedule, another option you could consider is multivariable calculus. Now, it's not a required class for your major, but it is a very common option that people will take for the science elective right here. The science elective can be literally any class in the College of Science, so it is a very, very broad option. Now, continuing on, this 1 credit course, Intro to Materials Science, is a great introduction to your major and some different opportunities beyond RPI in that major. It is a fall-only class, so if possible, I would try to prioritize getting it into your fall schedule. If it's really just not working, another option to fulfill this requirement is Engineering Processes, which is ENGR 1300. Last but not least is the HAAS class, which again, there's a whole video on those if you want to learn more about them. So, obviously, fall semester has some good options. We've talked about physics, but your options even go a little beyond that. So, obviously, physics can come into play here, but depending on what AP credits you have, you might be looking at some of these upper-level math classes. You might be looking at upper-level physics. So, let's kind of do a test case where we pretend I have some credits and make decisions from there. So, for this example, I'm going to pretend I came in with AP credit for chemistry and AP credit for Calculus 1. So let's make my primary plan. So let's say I did not really have a great physics background in high school. I'm going to decide to wait on IEA and take Physics 1 in my first semester. Then I'll try to get in Intro to Materials Science, and I recommend all engineers take a HAAS class their first semester. As of now, I would be up to 9 credits, and I want at least 16, so let's keep going. Now, the easy decision here is I definitely want to take Calculus 2, And now I need to pick one more class. So let's say I thought about it hard and I was like, you know what? I'm feeling ambitious. I want to take material science my first semester. By all means, it's an option. So I'll check that one off. Now let's talk backups. So I like to color code. I'll flip this to red. So in terms of other things I could consider for my fall, I could do IEA. I could theoretically double up on Haas classes. Don't generally recommend it, but hey, I like writing down all options. Then moving along, I could consider throwing in a different 1-credit course to the fall. One option could be engineering graphics and CAD. And then from there, my options are getting a little slimmer. So at this point, I wouldn't be ready for DiffEQ. I wouldn't be ready for structure of materials or physics 2. But as I mentioned before, there might be some options in that science elective like biology, chemistry, another math course. And then last option I would say is that free elective there. So looking at this list, I have a general primary plan and some good backup options. If you ever need help parsing through this, consider coming to our webinars. I highly recommend it. You'll be able to chat with me live and ask your questions and hear questions from your peers. But also, always feel free to reach out to me directly, whether via phone or via email.